Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to review perhaps the best free finance app on the market. I'm going to walk you through Empower Personal Dashboard and our use of it over the past 11 years. That's right, we've been using this app for 11 years now. And I know that because every year they give you a little reminder that looks like this. And this reminder just popped up a few weeks ago and reminded me that we've been using this tool for 11 years. Now, when we started using it, it went under a different name. It used to be called Personal Capital. But this tool has stayed the same and has been a really helpful tool as we have built our wealth and also leveraged that wealth to create as much flexibility and freedom in our life as possible. So I'm going to highlight how we use Empower, and I'm also going to point out a few other features that may be useful for you. All right, I'm excited. Let's get into it. Now, please note this video is not sponsored by Empower. We do have an affiliate link in the description below, so if you do want to try out this platform, feel free to click that link in the description. It's a great way to support the channel at no cost to you. So what is the Empower Personal Dashboard? Empower is a sophisticated net worth, budgeting, and retirement planning tool all built into one platform. And the fact that it has all three features all in one platform for free is kind of mind-blowing. And no, it's not a trick. It's just that their business model is much different than some of the other paid subscription models. Empower uses their platform as a lead generation tool. That's a fancy way of saying that if you use the platform, they will market their products and services to you. I personally haven't used any of their paid products and services, so I can't speak to those, but I have used this tool for about 11 years, as I said. You can log into the Empower dashboard either on their website or through their mobile app. Once you log in, you'll see the dashboard, which highlights your net worth at the top left. Underneath your net worth, you'll see all of your accounts that you've linked to the dashboard. So what I'm showing you here is a demo account for the purpose of recording this video. In my personal dashboard, I have not just 6 or 7 accounts linked here, but probably 15 to 20. And all of the accounts are categorized into 4 main sections. You have your cash accounts, which will be your savings and checkings accounts. And you have your investment accounts, which will be your accounts like your 401k, your IRAs, and any other taxable brokerage accounts. Underneath your investments, you also have your credit cards. And then below that, you also have this other assets where Empower has this really cool feature where you can manually add in other assets. You can see here that I've manually added in the value of our 2015 Outback. And then in our personal dashboard, I also add in our primary residence and the value of the home, as well as our recently converted camper van. I didn't add both of those for the purpose of this video, but you can add in any other assets that may not have an electronic account with a current balance to sync to. With home balances, they even have a cool functionality where you can link it to the Zestimate, so the Zillow estimate value of your home. I tend to think that Zestimates can vary widely, and so I prefer to just update this manually once or twice a year. So the nice thing, and probably the best feature about Empower and all of the paid premium products out there, is that it shows you all of your account balances and activity in one centralized location. You don't have to navigate to this credit card company and that savings account to look at your balances. You can log into one central location and see not only all of your account balances, but also the transaction detail. And you can see transaction detail for each account. So if I click on this credit card that I've synced to this demo account, you can see the recent activity. The transaction detail is not just visible in the account detail page, as I've shown here, but also in the other feature that I want to mention is the budgeting feature. So the budgeting feature is something that we log in and reference quite regularly. This is pulling in all of the activity from all of your credit cards, checking, savings accounts, all of that transaction detail, and consolidating it all into one place. And you can review this over customizable timeframes. So it defaults to the current month, but you can easily change it to last month. This will show you not only the total spending, but also all of the individual transactions. When Jess and I first started budgeting after we got married, I actually did everything manually. I had a spreadsheet that I created, and at the end of each month, I would look at all the detail, the transaction detail, and I would manually add up the individual categories. So if I had spent groceries on 3 different credit cards, I would be pulling that from 3 different credit cards into a single cell on a spreadsheet. And then I'd be doing that for all of the categories. But it would take me hours to consolidate all of this, and then I'd have to double check it to make sure I did it correctly. I don't recommend this. Instead, what I recommend is using a tool like Empower. Jess and I stopped budgeting in the traditional sense about a decade ago. And what I mean by that is we no longer set spending limits or targets for future months. I'll probably create a future video that goes into greater detail on this decision to stop budgeting, but for the purpose of this video, there are a couple of reasons why we made this change. And the first is experience. We had years of experience where we felt confident we weren't going to go crazy with our spending. And I believe anyone with enough experience and the right habits formed can get the same level of confidence in their ability to control their spending. But the second, and perhaps the more important reason why we switched our method of budgeting is that we have a tool like Empower. As I mentioned, we use this budgeting tool quite regularly. And it's so simple to use. It allows us to see all of our spending from previous months, and that gives us kind of a quick gut check on if we're on the right track or not. So because we're not going to veer off track that much, just organically, it allows us to then just review our spending in the past. So every month or two, I'll log into Empower. I'll navigate to the budgeting app. It'll often default to the current month, so this is what the screen I would see once I log in. And then I'll toggle it to last month. And this is where I'm reviewing a couple of things. One is the total spend, which is highlighted in this circle area. And it's saying this is the total spend from last month. Now this is a new demo account, so some of the comparisons aren't really helpful. You can also set target budgets if you want of like, hey, I want to average spending 5, 4, 3,000, whatever the amount is each month. So I haven't set those in this dashboard, but I do have those set in our personal one. And it gives us a quick gut check of, hey, how much money did we spend last month? Did that surprise me? And that might mean we had an unexpected expense or a rare expense that happens once every year or every decade or every 30 years, if like replacing a roof. And so if it didn't surprise me and I knew that expense was coming, I'll move on with my analysis. If it did surprise me, I'll dig into it a little bit further to understand why it did surprise me and what we can do moving forward. But this isn't a formal, rigid process. It's very fluid and casual and has evolved over the years. And using a tool like this allows us to have it more casual because it's giving us all the data that we need. I'm also looking at the individual categories, but just again, for looking for things that stand out or surprise me. This is often where I'll see or catch fraudulent activity, either in the categories or reviewing the individual transactions. I'll often do a quick scan of the vendors or the description that is mentioned here just to make sure there aren't any transactions that I don't recognize. And if there are some major expenses, I'll say,
hey, Jess, do you remember this purchase?
And then she'll often be like,
oh yeah, that was for this purpose and this is what we did.
But that's essentially what I'm using this budgeting feature for. It's just to review past spending, and it really is 5 to 10 minutes a month, maybe every other month. And while I started with this budgeting feature, Empower is not known for budgeting. In fact, this budgeting app is really basic, especially when you compare it to some of the paid options out there. There's not a lot of functionality. You can set monthly spending targets, and you can update categorizations that happen automatically, but there's not a lot of functionality built into the budgeting tool. But that's because Empower really focuses on the investing side. I just happen to find a lot of value in something that I use quite regularly to look at all of our spending across all of our accounts in one centralized location. But let's move on to the investing features, because that is also where there's a ton of value, and I think many of you would benefit from seeing these features. So there are 5 main investing features built into the Empower dashboard. There's holdings, balances, performance, allocation, and US sectors. I'll click on holdings because that's the first one, but I'm going to spend more time on performance. If you have several investing accounts at several different investing companies or firms, you know how much a headache it can be to get a bird's eye view of your entire portfolio. Often it's a little bit of like piecemeal of like grabbing from here and adding in some stuff from over here and trying to make sense of apples and oranges. Did I just say apples and oranges? Yeah, just go with me on it. The idea is it's really hard to see your overall portfolio in one centralized location. That is without Empower or a tool like Empower. And it's actually quite common to have so many different investing accounts at different companies. A common example of this is getting a 401k through your employer. It's often through the firm that the employer has chosen. And then you also have the option of having an individual IRA, whether that's Roth or traditional, and or a taxable brokerage account. That might be at a different company. So if that's the case, you have at minimum 2 companies to log into and 2 different accounts, but more likely you have a few different accounts to log into and get data from. But with Empower, you can see all of that in one place. So regardless of the investment vehicle, whether it's an IRA or 401k, you can see all of your holdings across your entire portfolio. So underneath holdings, this demo account is a bit more simplified, where we only have 2 different index funds in this portfolio. Now we do tend to lean towards just index funds, and I'll explain more about our investing strategy in another video. But suffice it to say, if you had a lot more individual stocks or index funds, they would all be listed here. This allows you to see not only how many shares you have, what the current price is, what the value is, but also recent changes as well. But typically, I'm not looking at the holdings that often. I'm generally going to performance. And this allows me to see the performance of my entire portfolio over a specific time frame. So I might have it default to 90, or this year is often a popular one, where I can see what the performance was this year and compare that to the US stock market, a blended portfolio. So over the past several years, we've also moved to simplify our investment strategy and simplify how much time and energy we use to manage our investments. And so one of the things we've done is we've consolidated all of our accounts into one company. And I'll talk more about that in a future video, but suffice it to say, I wanted to keep things as simple as possible. But even with doing that, it's still a lot of effort and frankly difficult to see the overall performance across all of the different accounts, because we have a solo 401k, we have an IRA, we have a Roth IRA. There are so many accounts to look at, and there are multiple logins with both Jess and me that it's impossible to get a bird's eye view or to do so very easily. And so the funny thing is, even though we've consolidated all into one company, it's so much easier, and I find myself logging into Empower first when I want to look at performance of our investments. It's just that easy to see, and as I show you on this screen, how simple it is to see your entire portfolio's performance across all of your accounts, regardless of the investment vehicles. Similar to budgeting, it's one of the things that I go to on a regular basis. I don't really look at holdings or balances that often, but I will occasionally toggle between them just to see a little bit more detail. And the other 2 investing features are allocation and US sectors. These are not features that I use quite often, but they have a ton of value. So just because I don't leverage these other tabs as often doesn't mean there isn't value. This is just how I use these tools. I tend to stick to performance, and then occasionally we'll look at the other tabs, maybe on an annual basis. If you're someone that's already using Empower and you have other uses for these tabs, drop a comment and share your advice with others. I know so many of us would benefit from learning from other people's experience, and this is just our experience in this video. Now, performance and budgeting are probably the most common features that we use on the Empower dashboard. But there are so many other features that I don't have time to cover in this video. One more that I will mention is underneath the Planning tab. So underneath Planning, there is something called the Retirement Planner. This allows you to create multiple plans and build in certain assumptions to estimate what your portfolio will look like over time. And so you'll see that in this demo account, I've already built out the core part of a plan, and I'll make some quick modifications. I'm not going to go into great detail on this, but I do want to mention that this is a really powerful tool and can give you some real-time feedback for things that you're thinking through or different scenarios that you're thinking through. So underneath the income events, this is where you can make adjustments to those assumptions. So previously, I've already entered the current savings. I've actually used this feature here. I don't know if you can see it, but it says synced with linked accounts. Basically taking that balance from all the accounts that you've linked and populating that as your current savings. Then you have the ability to say how much you're currently saving. Right now, many of you know Jess and I are not saving any money each year. And if you want to learn more about that decision, I'll include a link in the description below. But for the purposes of this video, I do have 10,000 for this scenario. So I'm going to hit save. I'm not going to make any changes there. They also have a default estimate for Social Security. If it's just you, it'll just have one of you. But if you have a spouse or partner, it would include 2 separate Social Security, as you can see here. I'm actually not sure how they populate this. I think it's based on previous earnings, but not confident on that. If you don't want to sync with whatever it is and you have a more realistic estimate, you can also manually change this. So if I were to say I know I'm getting $30,000 a year in Social Security at age 67, or at least that's the projection, I can update that to see how things would change. And just with that one small change, I don't know if you noticed it, but this chart changed significantly. Another way that you can make adjustments is not only to the income, but also to the spending goals. So this is also putting in when you're planning to retire. So when your income would go away. Right now I have this at age 60, but if I were to change this to age 55 and then leave everything else the same and I hit save, you'll see that this will dramatically shift the projected value of our portfolio. This gives me real-time data to say, wow, like if this were our situation and all this information isn't updated, but if it were, then I may want to rethink when we're retiring. Or I may want to rethink some of the spending goals. Like maybe we can't afford to take a vacation for 10 years at $5,000 or whatever I had it as. There's a lot of customization. Again, I won't go into all the detail, but I did want to point out that this is a really powerful tool. And it's definitely worth looking into. So I hope you found this review very helpful. Again, this is our practical use of the Empower dashboard over the past 11 years and how we've really refined our use of it to really focus on what matters most to us, and that's net worth, budgeting, and our investment portfolio. If you would like to give it a try, there's a link down in the description below. Again, it is an affiliate link, so we may receive compensation if you sign up. But it is a great way to support the channel, and again, at no cost to you since the tool is free. Funny thing is, Empower is calling me right now. So I'm not going to answer this at the time, but it's such a great example that if you do sign up with them, they will probably reach out to you for a free consultation. You don't have to answer, you don't have to say yes to the consultation, and you can continue to use the free tool. Even with the marketing efforts, I think it's a great tool to use. It is the best free tool out on the market by far and is often compared to some of the paid subscription options. If you want to learn more about our investing strategy and specifically why we stopped investing in the past year, check out this video. We go against all traditional advice, and it really defines our unique path to financial freedom. As always, thanks for watching and enjoy the journey.